This is lecture 5, supply chain management for IE 4355, facilities planning. So as always, we start the lecture with the objectives for this class. And in particular, this lecture is going to address the first objective, which is to develop an understanding of the principles of facilities location, layout, and material handling systems, and to practice designing facilities. So supply chain is a very important concept that is needed to understand the goals of designing facilities. As we have mentioned already, there's a component that looks at the material handling and the arrivals of supplies to the manufacturing facility. So things like where to locate the docks for the arrivals of supplies, and things like how are we going to get those supplies when we need them, who's going to be supplying those things that we need for our production. Those are all concepts that are relevant for the facilities design. So in this lecture, we are going to address the supply chain. What is supply chain management and how it connects to the design of facilities. The agenda for this lecture is the following. We're going to answer the question, what is supply chain management? Then we're going to talk about a supply chain strategy framework, the components of a supply chain management, and the major obstacles and common problems. Traditionally, logistics and supply chain management have been measured in terms of transportation and inventory costs and the administration required to manage both. Traditionally, firms will have an inventory manager and a transportation manager. This view is very narrow and causes significant problems in the proper functioning of the supply chain. So here in this slide, we are showing how much it costs for a company in terms of a freight transportation with a transportation manager in charge and inventory expense when he has an inventory manager in charge. How much is the administrative expense and the logistic related activity in terms of the percentage. So 898 billion is spent domestically for supply chain activities back in 1998. That has increased by about $200 million. The cost of inventory in the United States economy in the early 2000s. So you see, there's a lot of money that has been spent in these activities, and that's why it's important for us to understand how they work so we can improve these activities. The key message in this slide is that logistic costs are a significant fraction of the total value of a product. The problem here is that this is a purely cost-based view of the supply chain and drives a firm to simply reducing logistic costs, which is an incomplete picture. So here's again a slide showing the traditional view, the cost breakdown of a manufacturing good. You see the profit is 10%. That's the amount of money that you end up making as a company for the product that you're selling. And then you can see that the supply chain cost is 20% of it. Then we have the marketing and the manufacturing costs. So the effort spent for supply chain activities are invisible to the customers. The magnitude of supply chain management, Compaq estimated it lost about 0.5 billion to 1.0 billion in sales in 1995 because laptops were not available when they were needed. Procter & Gamble estimated it saved retail customers 65 million in 18 months by collaboration, resulting in a better match of supply and demand. When the 1 gig processor was introduced by AMD, the price of the 800 meg processor dropped by 3%. The importance of supply chain management. AMR Research is the biggest, this company was purchased by Gartner in 2010, AMR, and they were in charge of ranking the best supply chain in the world in terms of companies. And they stated that the biggest issue enterprises face today is intelligent visibility of their supply chains, both upstream and down. Another company that performs research on supply chain management stated that companies need to sense and proactively respond to unanticipated variations in supply and demand by adopting emerging technologies such as intelligent agents. To boost their operational agility, firms need to transform their static supply chains into adaptive supply networks. And then in Gartner, the Gartner Group, who purchased AMR, they say that by 2004, 90% of enterprises that fail to apply supply chain management technology and processes to increase the agility will lose their status as preferred supplies. This is an open-ended statement, and agility can be increased continuously. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you the ranking of the best companies in terms of their supply chain, and this was for 2019. So again, this is a research-based study by AMR Research. They publish this ranking every year, and these reports come every year in November. So as you can see, as I mentioned, Gartner's purchased AMR. So the ranking is here. There's two groups. They have the supply chain top 25, and they have the masters. So the masters are the one on the right, which includes Apple, Procter & Gamble, Amazon, McDonald's, and Unilever. And then the top 25 are the ones looking in this pyramid. So I'm sure that most of you will recognize all of them. So we have Colgate and Palmolive and Nestle, Pepsi, Intel, HP, Johnson & Johnson, Starbucks, Nike, Alibaba, Walmart, and multiple others. Supply chain management generated value by minimizing supply chain costs while keeping a reasonable service level. Customer satisfaction, quality, on-time delivery, those are things that can be measured in terms of service level. This is how supply chain management contributes to the bottom line. Supply chain management is not strictly a cost reduction paradigm. So as many people say, a picture is better than 1,000 words. So a supply chain consists of all these pieces. It includes the upstream component that includes the supplier, the manufacturer, and the distributor, and then we get downstream to the retailer and the customer. So supply chain, again, aims to match supply and demand by generating some profit for products and services. So it's a matter of understanding what the customer are required at the stores, and then trying to match that demand with the supply. So supply chain management achieves the right product plus the right price plus the right store, the right quantity, the right customer, plus the right time. And a combination or an efficient process that involve all those pieces will generate higher profits. So in this slide, we have the detergent supply chain. Supply chain involves everybody from the customer all the way to the last supplier. Key flows in the supply chain are information, products, and cash. It is through this flow that a supply chain fills a customer order. The management of these flows is key to the success or failure of a firm. So here we have a, and I was thinking one example of companies that are doing very well in terms of supply chain management and how they compare to other companies that didn't manage their supply chains, and they end up disappearing. So for example, you compare Amazon. Amazon started by selling books, and there were other stores like Borders that were selling books at their stores only. So when Amazon improved in terms of delivery and their supply chains for the books, then these other companies started to get behind in terms of improving the service that they were providing to the customers. So also, if you know about Dell, Dell also has a very efficient Dell computers in terms of manufacturing and delivering their product to the customer. And there were companies such as Compaq that disappeared, and they were also computer manufacturer, and they were very popular until they failed to improve their supply chain. So here's a detergent supply chain. So we have what the customer wants, and then we go, we're going backwards, right? So we start with a green square. Customer wants the detergent, and then we have some supermarket in this in Texas that will be HEB. So they know that the customers are asking for this product, so they will try to put that in their stores. And then we'll have a third-party distribution channel that will deliver the product to the supermarket from the manufacturer. And then the manufacturer is Procter & Gamble in this case. But for Procter & Gamble, they also have the other piece of the supply chain, which is, I mean, they need to get the supplies. They need to produce this product. So they include here the plastic cup producer, packaging, the chemical manufacturer, paper manufacturer, and so on. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that are connected in order for the customer to get the product. So this is what I stated in the previous slide. So there are three connections here. The material goes from the supplier to the customer or the product. The information is flowing between the supplier and the customer. Customer states what they want, and the supplier receives that information, and then the information is getting back to the customer, and then the funds go back from customer to the supplier, which is the one purchasing and paying for the services or the product of the supplier. So supply chain management in a supply network. Supply chain management is concerned with the management and control of the flows of material, information, and finances in supply chain. So as you can see here, as we mentioned, the catch is going from the customer back to the supplier. And also there's some cash flow going in the opposite direction. And product services can go in both directions. So in this picture, we see how, we have suppliers from all different parts of the world, and those Thailand and India, so they're sending those materials to the manufacturing. In this case, this is in Mexico, so Mexico received the supplies and they produce certain products, and then we have the Texas distributors that will bring those to US retailers and finally to the customers. So the task of the supply chain management is to design, plan, and execute the activities at the different stages so as to provide the desired levels of services to supply chain customers' profitability. The importance of supply chain management. In 2000, the US companies spent $1 trillion, about 10% of the gross domestic product or GMP, on supply-related activities, movement, storage, and control of products across supply chains. So some of the problems, if you look at the tier 1 supplier, if you end up having frequent supply shortage, or you have machine is down, then if your production is not moving as scheduled, then that will definitely affect the whole supply chain. So if we look at high inventories through the change, so if we have, we need more warehouses, that's also increasing the cost of the product. If we have inefficient logistics, then we might not get the product in the stores, or and the customers will not be able to purchase the product. Ineffective promotions also, that's in terms of marketing. So if the customer is not informed about the product, how can they get the information they need to make a decision at the time of purchasing? So eliminating inefficiencies in supply chains can save millions of dollars. A generic supply chain. So a customer is a supplier for some other company. A supplier is a customer for some other company. So not all pieces of a supply chain belongs to the same company. So basically, as we have discussed already, there are multiple pieces, right? And for example, for the manufacturer, the supplier, for the supplier, the manufacturer will be their customer, because they are the ones purchasing the materials to produce another product, and so on. And that's what we're referring to when we say a customer is a supplier for some other company, until we get to the last piece of the supply chain, which is the customer. Cycle view of supply chains. The supply chains involve multiple cycles, with each cycle at the interface of two successive stages in the supply chain. Each cycle involves the customer stage placing an order and receiving it after it has been supplied by the supplier stage. One difference is in the size of order. The second difference is in the predictability of the orders. Orders in the procurement cycle are predictable once manufacturing planning has been done. So again, here we have multiple cycles that are repeated as the time moves on. So we have the customer order cycle. This customer order cycle can be affected by things such as seasonality. So if we have products that are sold only during Christmas, or there are products that are only sold during summer, and so on. We have the replenishment cycle, which involves the retailer and the distributor. We have the manufacturing cycle, which involves the manufacturer and the distributor. And then we have the supplier cycle, or the procurement cycle, from the manufacturing and the supplier. So the procurement means that, okay, we know that the manufacturer state, this is our production schedule, this is what we're gonna need. And then that information is passed to the supplier for them to set up their activities in order to know how to get the materials they need for the manufacturer. So any cycle, 0, it will be the customer arrival. 1, customer triggers an order. 2, supplier fulfill the orders. And 3, the customer receives the order. Push versus pull systems. We talk about a little bit about this when we talk about manufacturing processes. So push versus pull system instigates the movement of the work in the system. Well, in push systems, work release is based on downstream demand forecast. So we are forecasting that we are going to have this much product requirements by the store. So we are going to base our production, our manufacturing production, on those forecasts. So the push will start pushing as much as production as needed to meet those forecasts. So they keep inventory to meet actual demand and act proactively. On the other side, in pull systems, work release is based on actual demand or the actual status of the downstream customers. So they may cause long delivery lead times, and these act reactively. So for example, making a specific resume for a company after talking to the recruiter. So you are only taking action until you have the certainty that this is what they need or the customer needs. So in this view, processes are divided based on their timing relative to the timing of a customer order. So we have push processes and we have pull processes. So push processes are happening before the customer are asking for the product. They're basically, again, basing their decisions on forecasts, and they have the product already in store in a warehouse, for instance. And when the order is made, they just pull the product from the warehouse and send it to the customer. On pull processes is the opposite. Once a customer is pulling from the system, a flag or a signal is passed to the production schedule, saying that, okay, a customer just took one of the items that were available, so we need to produce another one. So they are not going to produce anything unless there's an action from the system. And so there's a boundary between the two. So customer order cycle and the production, procurement, manufacturing, and replenishment cycles. That's where the customer order arrive, and that's the push-pull boundary. So a supply chain strategy framework. What are the mission, strategies, tactics, and decisions? So the mission or the mission statement is the reason for the existence of an organization. The strategy is a plan for achieving the organizational goals. The tactics are the actions taken to accomplish the strategies, and the operational decisions are the day-to-day decisions to support those tactics. So let's provide an example. So this is what I call the life strategy for Ted. So Ted is an undergrad. He would like to have a career in business, have a good job, and earn enough income to live comfortably. So we split this into the 4 areas. Mission is to live a good life. The goal is to have a successful career and good income. The strategy could be to go and get a master's degree. Tactics is to select the college and the concentration. And the operations will be to register, to buy the books, take courses, study, graduate, and get a job. So how do we link the supply chain and the business strategy? So a competitive strategy is a set of customer needs that a company emphasizes and concentrates on while producing and serving. So for example, Walmart, 7-Eleven, and Sam's, they will have different competitive strategies. So 7-Eleven is trying to serve those customers by selling them individual products, let's say in gas stations and so on. Whereas Walmart will target customers that are looking to buy multiple products on a single shop. And then if you look at Sam's, then we're looking at the larger scale. So it's not only multiple products, but multiple items of the same product. So that's the competitive strategy, business strategy. We have a product development strategy, marketing strategy, and then the supply chain strategy is tied to those 2. So in this diagram, we have the new product development, the marketing and sales, the operations, distribution, and service, which is at the end of the line. So in terms of product development, it relates to technologies for future operations via patents and a set of product services. So for example, be the technology leader. At some point, IBM workstations were the technology leader in desktop computers, or offer many products such as Dell computers. So we also here have an example of a car. We call this the example building the world's cheapest car. And this was a product that was intended to for this company. They wanted to be the ones producing this cheapest car for a cost of $2,500. That was unveiled at the Delhi Auto Expo, and this was by the Indian car manufacturing Tata Motors. So the idea is this was trying to appeal at the country's 65 million scooter riders that were unable to purchase a car. So the idea was, okay, get a car for $2,500. We have the dimensions, the top speed, the engine volume, the mileage, 50 miles a gallon, not bad. And the annual sales target was 200,000 cars. Although this idea was not taken into production, you can see what was the strategy for this product development. There are other things that have to be considered, like safety of the passengers and so on. in order to take those ideas into fulfillment. In terms of marketing and sales strategies, this relates to positioning, pricing, and promoting of products and services. So for example, never offer more than 3% discount, the everyday low price at Walmart, the demand smoothing via coupons that Best Buy uses. The supply chain management strategy relates to procurement, transportation, storage, and delivery. For example, never use more than one supplier for every input, never expedite orders just because they're late, and always use domestic suppliers within the sales season, not in advance. So fitting the supply chain to the customer or vice versa. There are multiple things that needs to be taken into account. For example, to understand the customer wishes, understand the capabilities of your supply chain, and also matching the wishes with the capabilities. So if you notice, for example, that customers are now going into the electric car product, so customers are preferring those cars now, and you want to go into that dimension, but you don't have the capabilities, then you're not matching those wishes with your capability. So the challenge is how to meet the extensive wishes with the limited capabilities of your company. Achieving strategy fit consistent with the supply chain management and competitive strategies. We need to fit the supply chain to the customer. Understanding the customer, the range of demand, the production lot size, and taking into account the seasonal products, the response time, like if you're looking at healthcare in terms of organ transplantation, the service level, how good is our product availability, product variety, innovation, and accommodating the poor quality with the defects and so on. So the implied demand, uncertainty for supply chain, implied trouble for the supply chain. So contributors to the implied demand uncertainty. So let's see, in terms of commodities, detergent, and in terms of also commodities, long lead time steel. In terms of customized products, high fashion clothing, emergency steel, and so on. So the customer need and the implied demand uncertainty, we can see how that changed according to the type of product and commodities. So, so we know the customer needs detergents, long lead time steel, those are needed as well. So the uncertainty will be low. On the other side, we need to take into account the price when setting up these products. And for high customized products, then the demand the demand will be more uncertain. So that's why we have the demand high, the demand uncertainty. So it is high. We don't know when a specialized like a boat, or a jet, or a airplane for an individual or for an artist, and so we don't know when those orders are going to arrive. But when they arrive, we have to be very responsive. We need to be able to respond to that demand in order to get the business. So that's the comparison. So very low uncertainty, we can deal with that. We can deal and compete in terms of price. But when the uncertainty is high, then we need to be able to be responsive to that uncertainty. So on the next slide, we have the understanding the supply chain. the cost responsiveness trade-off. So we have the cost at the bottom of the graph, and then we have the responsiveness in the y-axis, and then we have a line that is trying to identify what is the efficiency frontier. So so if you are on that line, then you are good. So if the cost is very low, as you see that in the y-axis, as you move to the right, cost is low, then your responsiveness can also be low. So to address that business, because you can have more of those items on hand and so on, and you know those are going to sell. So you will have that product. That product is going to move at some point. So low cost, low responsiveness, but when you have a high cost, like something that is specialized, you have to be very responsive to that demand. So that's why you get that very high point in that curve, in the efficient frontier for this. So that's the idea of this graph, and that's the explanation. So you want to be responsive, very responsive to items that are specialized, because the demand is very low. So if you want to get that business for that demand, then you have to be able to satisfy the demand of the customer, because they're willing quickly, because they're willing to pay a high price for that product. That will be your business. So for specialized products, for not specialized products, where the cost is very low, then your responsibility don't necessarily have to be very high, because you can have some of that product on hand. It's not going to cost you more a lot. So you should be able to have some of them on a warehouse, for instance, and then your response will be based on the availability. So achieving strategic fit, wishes versus capabilities. So again, uncertainty in demand and certainty in demand. So in this case, x-axis, we have the certainty in demand close to the 0, 0 origin of the graph, and the uncertainty in demand, as we move far from the origin, we get more uncertain. And we have the responsiveness in terms of efficient and high cost, low cost. So certainty, we have some examples here in terms of restaurants. So if you have a certain demand, you can be efficient, like for example, a lunch buffet in which you have a very low margin, but your business is in having more people visiting your restaurant. So you have very specific food plates, and then you get your margin based on the number of people. So low cost, efficient. But if you move more towards the right of the x-axis, you get, for example, to the gourmet dinner, in which the plates are confectioned very specific. There's very specific menu. So your profit is going to come from a limited number of people, but you have a high margin on each plate that you serve. So your responsiveness in terms of supply chain has a high cost. Maybe you have very specific ingredients and very specific, or you have a very expensive equipment that is to be used. So that's why it's moving in this diagonal line more up to the top in terms of you being able to respond, and also the uncertainty in the demand. And those two lines are defining the zone of strategic fit. So if you are within those lines, then you are good in terms of your business. Top 10 retailers reported in 2008, showing here the first four. So we have Walmart, we have the Home Depot, and we have Carry, Ford, and Tesco. So what are the big retailers' strategy? Walmart is efficiency. Target is more focused on quality and service. And Carry 4 is international ambience. Stores like Kmart that are out of business, they don't have a specific strategy. It's confusing. So they're squeezed, or they were squeezed between Target and Walmart. They rely a lot on coupon sales. So the question will be, does these coupons stabilize or destabilize the supply chain? The answer will be depends. Like if you have the same type of coupons coming and the people react to them in the same way, that's something that you can predict. The uncertainty is not as big. But if you have multiple type of coupons and people react differently to those, then yes, it can destabilize your supply chains. So Kmart and Sears merged in 2004. Now they're called Sears Holding. So the idea was for Kmart to get some additional cash to stay alive, and then Sears to get a presence outside the malls. Other factors, multiple products in the supply chains, multiple customers for a given product, separate supply chains for tailored supply chains. For example, Barnes and Noble, retailing or e-tailing. So what will be the strategy, or what will be the different supply chain, depending on the type of business. And competitors. There are more competitors, they're faster and global. So for example, online programs compete globally in terms of education. Other factors, the product life cycle. So supply chain management strategy moves toward efficiency and low implied uncertainty as the product age. So for example, air travel is becoming more efficient. Southwest Airlines leads the drive for efficiency. Flat screen TV producer of Taiwan was looking for ways to make supply chain more efficient in 2004. Replacement sales, selling to replace broken units. For example, AC replacement is about 50% of the market. So in terms of achieving strategic fit over the life cycle, again, looking at certainty and uncertainty, responsive to high costs and supply chains, then we have the same zone. You want to be in that diagonal in which your certainty and demand is matching the efficient, low-cost supply chain. So I'm going to stop here and we'll continue on the next video.